that aspect because they don't have emotional intelligence, and you can't give that to people. You can't teach it to people, and you can't force them into it. So like people that are negative, no, I'm just not gonna have them around. But people that are trying to find their own way or their own lane and don't understand emotional intelligence or not, the totality of emotional intelligence. Sometimes you got to give them time. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's too much time, and then you got to do what's best for you. But you have to sit back and understand that it's one of those things that even in those relationships, you still have to have. Like, I can't necessarily react because you don't have something or understand something that I think you should. Mm-hmm. It's not my place to be like, you should know this. And I don't know how you, like, necessarily was brought up. I don't know the people around you. I know they're not the motherfuckers I fuck with. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this situation. Yeah. But, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, I don't know those variables. So, it's not my place to pass judgment. And as long as I got it in enough people that I'm okay, I'm fine with it as long as nobody else is negative. I can get rid of the negativity. But that's just me.
So I wonder, like, if like serious relationships or marriages, most of them break down because of. I mean, if it starts with like a lack of emotional intelligence.
I don't know.
So like it's
to a certain extent.
I think if the arguments happen, it's because of just not learning, not reading the situation, or misreading the emotions and then jumping off the handle, which kind of leads to resentment, which leads to feeling neglected, which leads to infidelity.
Yeah. I would think so to a certain extent, only because like most arguments, especially in relationships, are emotionally driven. Mm-hmm. You don't really have a lot of emotional intelligence in a situation when you're already emotionally in. That's why I also I think most people honestly shouldn't argue. I don't see the point in arguing. And here's the reason, and for better or for worse, probably to a fault with me, like I'm not arguing with you. Like you can argue, you can tell me how you feel, and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to stew on it and make sure that I dig deep enough into it to understand it, right? Because the fact of the matter is, what you're saying could be valid. So I'm going to step back and say, this is something negative. Did it start with me? Are the things that are being said about me true? Could they have been avoided if I done something different? Or was what happened perpetuated by something that you did and you never considered what you did? All you saw was the outcome of what you did. And you didn't backtrack enough to say, all right, well, this wouldn't happen if this happened. Because the first thing that happened in arguments is people like, well, this happened. And like, well, you did this. Well, but you did this. But so, you do this all the time. Well, you do this all the time. But still, all you're saying is you don't had all these grievances all this time. Where's the root of the cause? Like, if you don't understand that and you can't step back and say, all right, it's possible that this started with me. Like, even if it didn't, in an argument, I still think people should do that. Should just step back and be like, it's possible. Even if I'm upset right now, even if I don't feel like what's being said about me is valid, it may have started with me. But the problem with that is, if somebody deliberates and get to the conclusion that, oh no, this didn't start with me, and then several days later they come back and let you know how they feel about it, you're probably even more fucked, right? Because they didn't thought about it and they've thought it through unemotionally, rationally, and got to the conclusion. And when you made all these accusations, you were upset.
Yeah.
And now, especially me personally, I'm going to pick you apart down to the very last ounce of your character and send it back to you tenfold. Because now I'm going to write a whole encyclopedia on how and what you did and why it's a problem. And I'm going to do it with no hard feelings, no malice, just factual information. Here's what happened. Here's why. Here's what I did wrong. Here's what I could have done different. Because if I'm wrong, usually if I'm wrong and I approach a situation where I know I'm wrong and I'm about to get cussed out, I'll just go with my heart in my hand and be like, here's what I did. Mm-hmm. I fucked up. Don't get it twisted. I fucked up. And this is the part where you eat me alive. And I don't say shit.
You can have it.
Because I did it. Mm-hmm. And that's all there is to it. But most people come into something like, well, here's the problem. Lately it's been, all right, this started when and why? Did you cause it? So, I mean, let's think about that from your perspective. Let's say you was in that position. And I asked that because, I mean, you're a married man. So, like, with that being a situation, you would know when your wife, even if she don't tell you, you would know when she probably going through something or not going through something. And there's certain situations, especially as a man, where when somebody go off on you, even if you don't know the root cause, you're about to eat it.
Yes.
So, I mean, to me, I think that's exercising a certain level of emotional intelligence. So how you approach that and say, all right, well, is this a lack of emotional intelligence? Is something going on that I don't understand? But either way, I need to exercise this high ground because I got to have emotional intelligence, whether I'm right or wrong right now.
Well, I think when it comes to like any long-term relationship, but especially in a marriage, you tend to learn like warning signs. So like when a tornado's coming, the clouds get dark, it gets the wind starts to feel a little different. You feel an air, you feel a shift in energy. And then I think you go from there if you're around the person. If you start to then the storm starts to come around, or there might be some quiet. There might be, harder steps going around the kitchen floor, and then you start thinking, what the fuck have I done in the past 24 hours that could be the cause of this?
Right.
So you have to go through a diagnostics and think about, okay, is there anything that I could have possibly done for this to be directed towards me?
Right. Absolutely.
So you have to vet that against, your experience. And then if not, you're like, okay, so then it could be work. So then you might ask a couple questions here and there. But depending on how the answers go, you have to navigate those waters and understand that this might be a case where, you're just the victim walking in the firing range.
Yeah.
And you have to take those shots.
Yeah.
Because if you do the alternative and fight back and act like, oh, no, you can do this shit to me, it prolongs it.
Yeah.
And then it convolutes what the problem was to begin with. Whereas sometimes a person just needs to be able to vent or just needs to be left alone. Sometimes it doesn't even need to be a conversation.
Right.
But you only get that from experience, from using your instincts emotionally, understanding that people have days, people have good days, and people have bad days, and if you're the cause, you're gonna have to put yourself in the mercy,
right,
and plead guilty,
right.
If not, it's still it could be a no contest.
yeah, that's allowed.
But those are the things that happen in life because arguments are rarely based on objectivity.
Right.
There really is no such thing as winners and losers. There's someone who kind of leaves in a better position,
right? Because
how it's handled. But I think people are too concerned with, trying to win everything and lead stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's also not a. I think that also shows kind of a lack of emotional intelligence. But the notion of emotional intelligence is oxymoronic because emotions are anything but intelligent.
Exactly.
Exactly. Per se.
Exactly.
But it's about I think why it's called emotional intelligence is because you're supposed to apply a level of reason to your emotions.
It's logic to how you react.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. It's logic to how you respond to your emotions and how you either react or don't react based off how you feel in that moment.
So if you're not a naturally reasonable person, you're probably not going to have any emotional intelligence.
Damn, that's a mouthful right there. I mean, I didn't even think about it from that perspective because usually, the more that I think about it, people who I would consider not having emotional intelligence aren't actually emotionally stable to begin with.
We have to look at the foundation. Like, emotional intelligence, I think, is the product of a recipe of all the elements inside your spirit,
right,
and your mind. So it's personality,
right.
It's reasoning ability. It's logic. There is a level of intelligence of regular intelligence that needs to be applied,
right.
And critical thinking, problem solving,
yeah,
composure.
Don't be throwing cheese at niggas.
Yeah. You throw cheese at a nigga at the bus stop.
But you know what? That actually makes me think too. Obviously, with that happening, but I may or may not get into that. But I realize as I sit here, I only have conversations that I know require emotional intelligence with people who are emotionally intelligent, right? For better or for worse. And I say that because when I've done something, I'll admit to it. I already know what's going to happen. If I think I've done something or something's wrong that I could be the cause, I'd rather know right away so we can, get to the root of it and squash it. But with that being said, it makes it that much worse because I'm not coming into a situation trying to win. Like my point is not to win. My point is to get to the facts, because facts don't make winners or losers. What usually happens is people are upset when they know that what I'm saying is factual and the facts aren't in their favor, right? So with me, I found out probably the hard way. I'll say over the last maybe 3-4 years, if I'm in a relationship and I don't feel that the person has enough emotional intelligence or the emotional intelligence required to deal with what I'm about to say, I just won't have a conversation. And the reason I say that is because I already know from having conversations if that emotional intelligence is there. So I may end up discussing how I actually feel about something with somebody else, because the thing is, I'm not pissed about it. I'm not upset about it. I might be annoyed with it, but it's not one of those things where it's necessarily a huge problem. Plus, I want to see if it's a habitual thing where this is a part of their personality or this is just an overall lack of situational awareness. So I go and have that conversation elsewhere, which probably may or may not be the right thing to do. But the reason I do it is I realize when I used to have those conversations, people naturally feel attacked. They feel like you're attacking who they are as a person or how you view them as a person, and then they automatically go into defensive. When it's not a offensive or defensive situation, it's simply a conversation. So I would rather be like, you know what, here's what happened, and have that conversation with a homie or another friend, or even if it's a female friend where they don't really have a stake in the battle, and they're just listening for the fact of, you know, this is what happened. And if my viewpoint is fucked up, which in those situations it's usually not, but even if it was, they just like, all right, you fucked up. But more often than not, they be like, no, that makes sense. And you clearly done thought about this for a while. Because, I mean, it's just like, you know what? I will use Adonis as the example, right? Now I'm going to tell this story, and it's going to go in the episode. So, so before I came up here, right, my son got to fighting over some cheese, right? Over some cheese at the bus stop.
Actual cheese, not money.
Actual cheese, not money. Went to the bus stop, decided he was hungry, asked some people, you know, if they had some snack on. Little girl had some cheese. She gave out the cheese. Guess another kid was upset that my son got more cheese than he did. Went and snatched my son cheese. Kid was bigger than my son. My son took some cheese, threw it, hit the kid in the face with it. After he hit the kid in the face, kid proceeded to kick his ass. Now, naturally, the principal called me. I'm a little upset, to say the least. I'm not upset that my son got his ass whooped. I'm upset that my son, one, was asking somebody for food because he was hungry when it's a shit ton of stuff at home, and two, was over fucking cheese. Right? So, like, I went home and I really had an emotional, you know, type intelligence, you know, type conversation with him. And I was mad, too, because, like, he know this stuff, right? I teach my son emotional intelligence. So naturally, as soon as I get this call, I'm thinking, all right, where did I fuck up as a parent, right? Because parents got the worst habit on earth, and I hate it in every parent doing it, and every parent that listen to this, just know that you are an emotional intelligence lacking motherfucker if you do this shit. Like, as a parent, everything starts inside the house. So if my kid does something at school, I don't care if he has a shitty teacher. I don't care if there are 100 other variables that could have led up to it. It still started in the house. All right. So you have to self-check yourself and say, all right, did this start in my house? Did I not teach my son something that he needed to know before he entered out into the world? Or is this truly something that he did that is his fault? After really digging through that, you know, I came to the conclusion that, you know, my son fucked up on some shit that he already knew, because, you know, he decided on his own that I'm going to sleep in today. My alarm went off so that I can get up and cook breakfast, but I'm going to snooze this alarm and I'm going to lay here instead of cooking breakfast. He then wakes up later, decides, you know, I don't have enough time to cook, proceeds to the bus stop, and he hasn't eaten breakfast and he's hungry. That decision to snooze his alarm is the decision that led to him getting his ass kicked over some cheese. Right? So it's like, I look at that and I think about how many times people do that in a day, and every time they do it, it annoys me, where they latch on to the first variable that's the cause of something. And my thing is, why, right? Because there's a decision that was made somewhere on your behalf where, you know,